So we have some 6 sessions covered under this. And shall we begin with the session 10? Because Chetna from WWF India, she is the session leader. She will be presenting that, and she has to leave a bit early. So, Karthik bhai, with your permission, shall
Yes,
we?
of course, please.
Yes. So, Chetna, begin your presentation or whatever your group's findings.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Amboj, and thank you for considering my request for a little leave of early leaving. Thank you for that. And hello, Dr. Sarabhai. It's lovely meeting you. And welcome to all the session leaders as well. Our session was session 10, which was on Nature Connect and informal education. It was being led by our panelists for the sessions were Ms. Radhika Suri, Director Education of WWF India, and Ms. Archana Chatterjee from IOC, who was the project lead for IUCN India. The session basically started with what is Nature Connect, and to make our audience actually experience Nature Connect and what is nature and how is it important, we started the session with a virtual nature trail. It was a brief 10-minute nature trail where a nature trail video where the audience could actually were taken into a forest, a rich forest, and given a glimpse of the different elements like birds, butterflies they can see. They were then asked about what their feeling was, what their emotions about watching the video was. And what we got as a response was they were happy, they were excited, they were very attentive, they wanted there was a lot of patience required, and that's what we wanted to instigate. We wanted to know that it is important, that is the importance of Nature Connect. Nature Connect is not just going into nature and looking at the beautiful things around you. It has an emotional well-being, it has mental well-being attached to it, and that's how Ms. Radhika started the session, saying that it is in each child. When Nature Connect, it has proven in various papers that any child which is connected to nature is healthier, smarter, and happier. And that's why it is very, very important to start them early and start them young. And a very brief example was given about the WWF India's NCI movement, or the Nature Clubs of India movement, which was started around 1969, early there, 1970s, and where a lot of and ran for 30 years. And why and it also gave the power of Nature Connect, because there the children or the young children were taken out on nature trails. Now when we see and look at it after 40 to 30 years, a lot of leaders, probably some in this session as well, were a part of the Nature Clubs of India movement. And that's how, that's the power of simple nature camps or simple nature connections have in transforming the thought process and transforming the lives of young individuals. I think Dr. Sarabhai was also a part of the Nature Clubs of India movement, so very, very well aware of it. And moving on to that, we looked into a few very simple tools that one can adopt to have a Nature Connect from nature trails, which do not only have to be in an urban, national, or a wildlife sanctuary. It can be in your backyard as well. It can be an urban biodiversity landscape as well, or it can be even in the school landscape. We observed how publications are an important part, how with 2020 virtual sessions and workshops have become very important to understand biodiversity, and they have to be as interactive and as important for children to understand nature. We learned about citizen science and how that is becoming a tool of the 21st century to involve students or children and even adults of any age to not just learn about nature, observe nature, but also help this scientific community in it. And it builds a sense of responsibility when they're a part of the citizen science movement. Moving from that, we had, moving from that, and I'm sorry for the hammering sound. I'm very, very sorry. There's a construction going on in my house and I'm apologetic to it. So moving on, we had Miss Archana Chatterjee giving us a brief about the IUC and Global Youth Summit, and how nature-based solutions are very, very important at this particular hour, and how it is important to connect youth with nature, and how one can advance them, how one can advance the nature-based solutions in their education system, and how to implement them as well on ground. She also gave us a brief about the World Conservation Congress, and what a little glimpse to what Mr. Harrison Ford said. And he said, like, it is time that we need to act. We can't wait. It is time that we all act, and we make children and youth are the most important stakeholders for moving into the for building a world which is better, greener, and healthier. And she also shared the vision of Nature 2030 for IUCN. And that's how we concluded our session about nature connected informal education.
Thank you, Chetna, for briefing us about your very interesting session. And of course, you had a glimpse of what IUCN World Congress is doing from Archana.
Yes.
So, very interesting. Thank you. Shall we move to group session 6, climate change education and literacy? This climate reality project, Terry and CEE. So,
Sure. Yeah, sure, sir, sure. I'm available out there.
Okay, Bhavesh.
Yes, please. Yes, please. So we had this interesting session on mainstreaming climate change education. Obviously, a lot of emphasis has been laid on education and climate change per se, but how to make an amalgamation for the same is something we try to deliberate, and how different organizations are trying to do that. We had some great insights out there. So obviously, climate change education is need of the hour. Mr. Aditya Pundir from Climate Reality India showed us the consequences that are taking place across the globe. And in case we are not able to do things very fast in time, we are in danger. National education policy, as far as India is concerned, is emphasizing a lot on this practical aspect, on how to dovetail practicality, modality of climate change into our day-to-day curriculum. Good part, organizations like WWF, organizations like CII, organizations like TERI, and Climate Reality Project have been doing it in their own way quite successfully. So we have good examples setting out there. We just need replications to take place across the platforms. And then there were examples that obviously it's need to move from cities to villages, that too in their language. So some of these stakeholders are already having regional translations on the subject of this, and they want to share it with other stakeholders. So that's the good part of it. So when CEE says that we are working at the East Coast as an East Coast program, working with 3 lakh people out there, Gujarat University was among the first one in terms of implementing a climate change education program. A full train they have been running. It is dovetailing these very efforts in the regional context. It's just needing more replication, so to say. Not only written format, obviously. So when we say that in villages, where devices are not available, where say internet has not percolated well, how to reach out to them, those older concepts of reaching via audio, via podcast is something that can be looked forward to. How to make it mainstream is the way. TERI on their part is making the gap lower and lower as far as academia and industry is concerned. They have been running programs on water efficiency, energy management, waste management for a long time now, and they are making it made available to the student community, making them readily available for the industry in times to come. So I think that is also something that others can look forward to. Climate Project Foundation says the pandemic helped them to reach out to more and more people, but at the same time, they were able to reach out to parents as well. So parents were also interested in learning about climate change education, what their pupils, what their children were listening to. So that was quite an insightful thing they too were learning in this pandemic via climate change education. Obviously, technology and behavior change communication plays a part in it. Madam Sandhu, who has experience working in rural as well as urban schools, shared how she is working with the student community in terms of waste management, in terms of making them plastic free at their homes, and then as they return back to school, how to implement it practically. Solar charkha is something that they have implemented. Khadi woven garments is something that they are promoting. Obviously, these are the things that probably need more and more replication in times to come. And then to conclude, at 2019 ICSC, we promised ourselves to have more and more international collaborations taking place, this global north-south divide, how to bridge that. Subject to climate is a definite step in this direction, wherein free educational material is being made available specific to climate change domain. Anything you speak of, they have white papers, they have presentations, they have deep dive resources made available for everyone, peer reviewed. So a teacher, a student can just log in and have resources made available to them. So that was a sum up to what we discussed in the climate change and education broadcast. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhavesh Swami. Very interesting session. And in fact, the climate, I think they are one of the partners subject to climate. I think very interesting initiative where all resources, open resources, open access resources are available. And that's also a platform where it's a co-created platform in a way. So very interesting. They are partner to ICSE, and I think we will work along with Climate Reality and other partners. We will work together to advance this climate education. Thank you very much. I think let's move to session 7, Education for Advancing Circular Economy. And this was done together with Mobius Foundation, FE, CE, ICE, SDGs, and Fair Trade India. May I request the group leader, the session leader, to present? Is he or she there?
You want me to do, or Mr. Sarabhai is doing it? I'm Sodi.
Sodi, you are doing it. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, in my group it was announced that Mr. Sarabhai will do it, but I'll continue.
No, sorry.
Thanks.
I'm just going to say a few words after everyone's.
Okay, thank you. My apologies. So we had a very interesting session. And in the session, we had 3 eminent speakers, Dr. Pramod Sharma, Dr. Shalini Sharma, and Miss Anjali. So I think so. There were a lot of points which were brought into the session. Some of the key points which I want to share with you is that, of course, circular economy, one of the very striking points made was circular economy and sustainability is not inexpensive, and it's not a jargon, but it needs more discussion, case studies, dialogues, to draw on the learnings and experiences which very much exist in every country. And there a lot of examples were shared about textiles, about education, the books, how they have been brought into the picture, how we were sharing books, how we are keeping newspaper and then selling it back for recycling it, and many other examples. And this unfolded its usefulness, really. The second big pointer, which was made by all the 3 speakers, and I did share some examples, was all about to bring knowledge of circular economy into our education system. Prima facie, it was mentioned by all the speakers, in order to have its impacts felt more downstream or upstream, and one needs to really understand both of these. They are simple in its ways, and many examples were shared, what comes in downstream and what comes in upstream. And upstream was all about creativity, using our resources to the better efficiency. So the education system has to have in it imbibed in order to make more impacts in the coming generations, how effectively we can use our material resources. Otherwise, we are using very heavily the material resources, and that will not lead us to a zero-based economy. That was very clearly emphasized. There was another point which was mentioned very strongly was today CE is seen as a difficult process by many, and they are trying to circumvent it. On the contrary, the three speakers who were talking about it, it is a very simple process enhancing our creative potential, building or encouraging the phenomena of reduce, reuse, refurbish, regenerate by developing a stepwise approach to ensure that environment is compensated, and that's how the actions need to be taken up. There was another factor which was brought by all the three, and I'm trying to sum that up, that they held that circular economy helps in increasing productivity and economic growth, improving quantity and quality of employment, saving lives, improving environmental impacts on water, air, and soil, checks pollution, and also enhances better ways to combat climate change. They also said it often helps to meet the SDGs. Low and middle income countries will need to generate more jobs and employment opportunities, and they will then come out of their poverty through the circular economy approaches, which were explained at details within the group, and those can be summed up. So the last point which was mentioned was that what excites people for circular economy. So it was meant that the products which need to be brought into the market, which talk about all these phenomena which have been said, should really have a labeling on it that why am I interested to buy this product? Because it has 7% of recycled material in it. Presently, we do not have labeling which talks about recyclability or refurbish or whatever the case may be. So I think so with these words, it is unjust to put their thoughts in 5 lines, but that's how it is, and the life goes on. Thank you very much, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prabhjot Sodhi. This was very interesting session. I wished I could have joined, but I was tied up in another session. But in the preparation of the session, we could interact a lot. And Mobius Foundation is also working in this circular economy area, so we will have more interactions. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Now, yeah.
Our pleasure, rather.
Session 8 is about mission sustainability, education and awareness for population stabilization. And that session was done in collaboration with the Mobius Foundation, Population Foundation of India, PFI, and Earth Overshoot. And we had Mr. Terry Spare, Earth Overshoot, and producer of 8 Billion Angels, K.S. James, Director and Senior Professor at the International Institute for Population Sciences, and Dr. Sanghmitra Singh of Population Foundation of India. So we began with the projection of the film, a short video rather, of the mission sustainability, population versus planet. That's a series which is being done in collaboration with Z Network, both Z News and Beyond Network, and Mobius Foundation. And it's every month we are coming up with one subject, taking up one subject in relation with the population issue, and making a good 30-minute documentary. So we started with that to bring the whole discussion into context. And that was the launch video where Karthik Bhai, you also had participated, and health minister of that time, as well as the Vice Chairperson of Planning Commission, Niti Aayog, and many experts from all over the country. So that we had a brief video presentation, and then again the presentation by this Terry Spass video on 8 billion angles. Then we turned into this panel mode, and we had very pointed questions to the panelists first was about the real state of affairs of population control in terms of policies, practices, and what are the major bottlenecks. In fact, largely every panelist felt that the population globally is almost declining, but it is a population momentum which is responsible for rising the population. In India also, almost 18 states of 29 states, 18 states, they have almost reached 1.8 or almost the total fertility rate, very close to stable population, what you can say. But the challenge is this: how to match that population about the quality of population, means improving the quality of life, environment, and resources. So that was highlighted, and in fact, the best strategy was in fact suggested was to invest in the young people for them to contribute as workforce of the country. That's basically exactly what we call as education dividend. Then we had the second question about the role of education in terms of sustainability. And in fact, James, he started with that the fertility transition that in the country has happened. Of course, there was female literacy higher in some of the southern states, but it was because of interventional strategies. Means there have been no significant difference between the educated and non-educated ones. The only difference that really made the difference was the interventions that were done. And of course, Terry Spare, who has worked in the area of mainly the education and communication, he was of the different opinion that in fact, the small family should be the symbol of empowerment and environment, and education can play a major role. Similarly, Sangamitra from PFIs, he said it's a social norms which plays much more role, and even the women education can make a difference. And that's what she was telling. There is a need to change regressive social norms along with women's education to bring down fertility levels. And finally, the way forward suggested was that we have to be careful not to repeat the mistakes of the past. We need to influence decisions when it comes to education and family planning. And also, incentives and disincentives should be voluntarily adopted. Fertility changes should not be irrecoverable. Education currently has to be emphasized to improve quality of population. That was one of the opinions of the group. We should put people before numbers and invest in them. We have to take measures to work for their benefits, that is gender equality. Before implementing cohesive policy, social norms should be addressed. And also investment in family planning should be increased for both male and female. Of course, means there was emphasis on female sterilization, 75% female, where of course they were bearing the brunt of both cultural, social norms as well as policy issues. But now the emphasis is on the male, and recent survey also shows that there is vast improvement in interventional strategies in men. We had another very interesting, we wanted to know the people's reaction. So we organized a poll, and the first poll was about whether we should need really this population stabilization in order to reduce pressure on limited resources. Then there was, of course, like declining population will have adverse impact on economy. And third option was countries must reap the population dividend. And of course, fourth was none of the above. But 100% respondents, almost 100%, they responded that population stabilization is needed in order to reduce pressure on limited resources and environment. That was overwhelming response. So that was in line with the recommendations of the group. Then second question that was put to the poll was regarding education. That can that play a role in population stabilization? So option one was strict population control law, providing incentives and disincentives for limiting family size. Second was provision of family planning services like easy access to contraceptive. Third was education and empowerment of women and girl child, and inclusion of male and family planning. D, all the above. So these were four options. Audience was divided. 50% almost, they said strict population control laws, and 15%, 50% means equal number were in the favor of education. So that was in nutshell findings of our group. So thank you very much. This was session 8 on population, which I can just briefly present to you. And let us move to very interesting session 9. In fact, there was maximum large number of attendees, registration was, I think the maximum number was in this, followed by, of course, school education and others. This session was done jointly with UNESCO and UNEP. I can see my former colleague Neha Midha on the screen. So Neha, are you going to present? Yeah, so floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for giving UNESCO New Delhi an opportunity to hold a session in this esteemed conference. So for everybody, I am Neha Midha. I work with the Natural Science Program at UNESCO New Delhi office. And this session was titled Ecosystem Services and Biodiversity Conservation. The session started with the discussion on how presently humanity stand at a crossroad with what legacy we are going to leave for our future generations, and how nature play a critical role in providing ecosystem services like food, energy, genetic resources, and how they are important, and how biodiversity is reducing at a fast pace. So we requested speaker to share with us positive and inspiring case studies from across the world about how they are doing things for saving biodiversity conservation on the ground with real case studies with efficient results. So our first speaker was Mr. Benno Bohr, who is the program specialist with the UNESCO New Delhi office. He shared the best practices from Abu Dhabi, from South Asia, about conserving coastal ecosystem, how they are about their productivity, how they are important for carbon sequestration, and what different countries are doing for saving this important coastal ecosystem. The second presentation was by Ms. Gayatri Wadhwa. She is a consultant with UNEP India. She shared about different environmental education program about in the schools from across the world, and then she focused on the India, how different education programs are run at the higher education level. If there is an eco club, if there are environmental courses, she divided, she showcased that what is the percentage, how different institutions, how different schools are doing. So she shared that data with all of us. And then she shared what are the challenges when schools or higher education take up these environmental education, they do it just for an activity, or they think as a broader aim for achieving the sustainability? Do kids do this activity only at the school level, or when they reach home they continue doing that at home also, or at the community level also? So those kind of data she shared with us, those are very interesting. Then she shared that how we have activities at the school level, but there are no green jobs. Even if we have environmental courses, there is still a lack of green jobs, and that's why a student may not pick up environmental engineering, and we will not have those engineering solution that we need in this world, for the solution that we need right now. And then she also talked about the gender issue. She shared that how 30% of the engineers are female, but as there is a lack of the green jobs, other issues are there, and there we are losing that experience that they have gained after the education. Our third speaker was Mr. Felix. He shared with us on ground example of a green academy school from Ethiopia. It's a UNESCO initiative of establishing a green academy, and this school actually showcased the best sustainability practices in a school. And these activities are all governed by the school and the students. How the students, how the youth, there are the change maker in these green academies. And that was a real example that's running on the ground, and especially it's coming from a country in Africa which is not even the maximum carbon dioxide emission is there for these countries, but they are actually showcasing the real solution on the ground to the world. Then we also showcased to our audience 3 very interesting videos. These videos were from the Indian Biosphere Reserve. These are UNESCO designated Biosphere Reserve. They were short movies from Sundarban Biosphere Reserve and Augusta Malay Biosphere Reserve, how these biosphere reserves are biodiversity hotspot, and what are the challenges which local communities living in and around this biosphere reserve face, and they are still living in harmony with the nature, with these biosphere reserves. So these were 2 short films, and there was another film about showcasing mangrove ecosystem from 125 countries. UNESCO has made a picture of these, has picture of these 125 mangroves ecosystem, and beautifully placed in a video with a very light and energetic music, and that was showcased to our audience. And in the end, we all had a discussion that how sustainability it should not be an activity, it should be how it should be the way of life. And especially when in 2021, when we are it's the beginning year for our UN decade for ecosystem restoration, how there are best practices, case studies which are available but need to be implemented where it is required, how there is an importance for raising awareness, enhancing knowledge, skills, and making that contribution, because every small contribution counts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Neha. I think very succinctly you have presented the findings of the group, and very interesting. Some of the insights that in fact really the ecosystem services and biodiversity conservation that can provide. In fact, biosphere reserves are the very special venues as sites for sustainability education, and you have very rightly said in one of the academy that you were mentioning in Ethiopia. It's in Ethiopia, I think, that you mentioned. I think that's a kind of model sustainability education, this academy institution. So I think we would love to have more details when we are going to publish the proceedings of this conference. So we will come back to you again. Thank you. And
Sure.
I think I would also like to thank all the colleagues of UNESCO, particularly Beno and others and of course Gayatri. Gayatri she was in other sessions as well. And yesterday her boss was here, Mr. Atul Bagai.
Yes.
So UNEP is in full force in this session. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And finally, let me invite session 11 session leader, Ecosystem and Sustainability Education. It was organized jointly by CE, Wildlife Trust of India, and Science City, Puspa Gujral Science City together. So, of course, UNDP was also, I think, in this session. Yes. So, Dr. Samir, you are there. Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. So, I will start sharing my slides. Can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Okay, so this session 11 was about ecosystem and sustainability education. So keeping in view the declaration of UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, we discussed that it is very important. This topic is very important, and sustainability education almost covers almost all the sustainable goals, SDGs. So the topic was very important, and there were four speakers in this session. Dr. Sandeep Tiwari from Wildlife Trust of India, basically he presented the ecological restoration work that is being undertaken by WTI in the Garo Hills in Meghalaya. It is basically community engagement for restoration of corridor, for restoring connectivity of elephant corridors. Dr. Sriji Kurup, he was he was from CE. So his presentation was on engaging citizens and in sustainable education. And Ms. Nandita Mathur was from UNDP, and she shared her experiences based on the work they are doing in Punjab. And she presented on ecological intelligence and sustainability education. And the fourth speaker of the session 11 was Dr. Praveer Deshmukh. So he talked about sustainability, linking it with education and livelihood. So we discussed in length, and at least Dr. Tiwari and Dr. Siriji Kurup and Nandita and Dr. Deshmukh, they all presentations were based on their field experiences. So they shared the things that have been done by different organizations. More or less everyone, all the presenters were targeting mainly an ecosystem or a particular species, restoration and recovery of any particular species. Nandita was working with local communities to reduce their dependence on forest and then also ensure sustainable agriculture practices. Dr. Praveer presented shared the experiences based on India Business and Biodiversity Initiative of CII. And the key takeaways of the session
Oh. I think there has been internet problem at his end. Samir, are you there? I think he lost connection. So, in fact, he has made his point, and we can straightway. Dr. Samir, can you? I think he lost connection. We lost him. So, is there any other one from his group? Either Sandeep, Shriji, or Nandita, Dr. Praveer? Is there anybody who can add some point?
I think you can move on, I think, because I think he made the main points.
Yeah. So we can move forward, move ahead to
Dr. Ambuj, I'm back. There is some issue in my laptop, so I'm on with my mobile. So
okay.
I can share the.
Yeah,
I'm
please,
not going
please.
to. I'm not going to switch on my camera, but
Okay.
I was on the last slide, so I'll share the key findings or the
Yeah,
key
yeah.
takeaways. So the key takeaways of the session was, it basically highlighted on joint planning, implementation, and monitoring with local communities. This was a key factor in almost all the presentations shared by the speakers, be it the Garo Hills presentation or by Sriji or by Dr. Ms. Mathur. So joint planning means engagement of communities in planning, monitoring, and implementation is important. And patience is must. When we talk to Dr. Sandeep Tiwari, because the WTI has been working in this project for the last almost 12, 13 years. So he said that patience is a must when you are engaging community, especially through education and awareness. Otherwise, there might be a problem of unsustainability in the practices that you are trying to implement in the with the communities. Recognizing local best practices. This came from the presentation of Ms. Nandita Mathur from UNDP. So local best practices must be recognized, and this should be a part of sustainability education. Legal literacy was highlighted by Sriji, and he said that it is important for ecosystem restoration. The locals must know the legal provisions to secure their lands or to secure their livelihoods. So legal literacy was highlighted as one of the major things that needs to be taken care of while we are doing sustainability education. Then, whenever we talk about implementation of project where stakeholders are multiple, their conflicts are always there. So establishing connection between stakeholders for ecological restoration, though it is a tough task, that's why it requires a lot of time and lots of conflict mitigation management strategies. But it works if you do it. Otherwise, the process or the project that you try to establish, it is prone to failures. The common platform is needed to bring all stakeholders. The GPDP experience of UNDP highlighted that GPDP is a platform where all stakeholders come and they think about restoration of of practicing sustainable agriculture or reducing the forestry resource use. So one platform is always needed to bring all the stakeholders. That was one of the key takeaways of the presentation of Ms. Mathur. Then one important thing that emerged out during the session was that ecosystem restoration and sustainability education must be linked with livelihood and lives of people. So it is not only teaching or preaching, it should be connected, it should be linked with the livelihood and the earnings of local communities, local people, or for that matter, any stakeholder. Otherwise, it is not going to be a sustainable one. Behavioral change measures were also suggested. It should be an integral part of the sustainability education. So in our session, most of the speakers, they discussed about non-formal ways of sustainability education. So behavioral change measures was one of the key highlights. Then Samvad, a public consultation, is important. It was used as a strategic tool for enhancing engagement of people in Tamil Nadu. The experience was shared by Sriji. And ecosystem mindset, and we need to influence the policy makers is also important. So the sustainability education must not be limited only to the local people, but the influencers, the policy makers as well. Otherwise, the initiatives might not be sustainable in longer run. And the last key takeaway message was engagement of women in restoration and education. It is a must because they form a very important. They are basically the last mile in any ecosystem restoration activity, or for that matter, sustainability education. So engagement of women was highlighted by all the participants during their presentation. So these were 12 key takeaways of the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samir, and of course, all your group members. I think the limitation of this technology is that the only those who are speakers, they can be admitted to this platform. All others are listening from the conference platform. That's the other platform where they cannot intervene. So but you came very quickly
But
to conclude.
I'm extremely sorry for this technical
No,
glitches.
no, it was, I
Happens.
think, for a few seconds. No problem at all. So, yes, I think we could start late, but we could finish within time. These session reports, key takeaways from the breakout groups. Finally, may I request Kartik Bhai, Mr. Kartikeya Sarabhai, Founder Director, Center for Environment Education. I think you all, the whole sustainability education community is familiar. He needs no introduction. And he has been rather, I would say, moving force and leading this ICSE, guiding on every moment, and also leading from the front. Yesterday he was in the inaugural session. To begin with, he is also the chairs the technical advisory committee of ICSE. So I think we all are very keen to hear you, Kartik Bhai, your concluding remarks.
Thank you, Rambus. And before I say anything, let me just congratulate everyone here for a wonderful conference. We've been discussing, as you know, in the Technical Advisory Committee over so many sessions, how to make this a success, and the proof is in what has happened. I think all the panelists, all the speakers, and all the other participants, and I think that technology itself is a learning. We will get better at it. Hopefully, it will not replace face to face, but it will certainly be something which is now permanently with us. Let me just say that we've had really good repertoires and people reporting on all the 11 sessions, as well as you've summarized yesterday morning session, and we all were there for this one. So not wanting to repeat it, but let me just say some of the highlights which I saw as important coming out. One was, of course, this whole issue of the new technology. And this technology is with us. I think many speakers spoke about how it has been a very rapid learning curve, both for the teachers, for the students, for rural communities, for several others. It has been a rapid learning curve. In some cases, it has been formalized, and people have actually taught how to do this. And therefore, the whole concept of training using this medium more effectively is something which we will need to learn. And I think more and more opportunities are required for the different groups. How does a teacher best use? What are best practices in some of these? You yourself said how we used a poll in the middle of one of our sessions. How do you use a poll? How do you have breakout sessions? How do you get more participation? So I think these are things which we will ultimately learn, and I think there need to be more opportunities. And I think the new teacher training programs, we'll have to do it. ICSE itself has got a major rural program in which we actually teach people how to participate, and it is fantastic how fast people are learning this. I think another very important thing which ran right through, that environmental education and ESD does need to take into account livelihood issues and economic issues. While it is called environmental education or ESD, I think all the three pillars of the social and the economic are equally important. And I think as we mainstream environmental education, mainstreaming really means that it encompasses all education. I think after a few years, many of us are hoping that the very term good quality education will mean environmental education or sustainability education which is sensitive to the issues which the globe is facing and how we can do it. And which is why many of us who were involved in that discussion felt that in India we should use the infusion approach rather than a separate subject. It is mainstreaming. And I think you find more and more people today doing it, and especially the focus which everyone talked about, the youth. The population group which Mr. Burman and you were in today also spoke about ultimately investing in the youth, the dividend, the demographic dividend of India, that the population will go up to a certain level and education will limit it. But what they do, what quality of education they have, the fact that the whole emphasis that we do need a male heir. I think even if that one single change comes about in India, it would have a huge impact on population, but also on a number of other educational initiatives on the girl child and on women and this thing which India has. And along with that, we went into how citizens and communities can be involved. I think there was an emphasis that youth need to be not only educated but involved. And I think that word involvement in decision making has been crucial. There were people who have spoken about involvement of communities, people who have spoken about investment of other stakeholders, but stakeholders need to be involved in decision making and need to have the educational tools and educational resources so that they can effectively participate. We had this talk on citizen science, and we have a number of programs where we are getting school groups, youth groups to actually look at things and study them. But along with that comes local problems that I think we need to understand that education has to lead to change, but not only change which will happen globally or through a large thing, but will happen at the local level. And local level change, we call it sometimes a handprint action, but positive action at the local level taken by communities, taken by schools. There was a whole talk in our sessions on green schools, on campuses, on industrial campuses, on villages becoming more green. So how do we really bring this in? Along with that, there will be talk on tradition. And we did see today different talks where people referred to the fact that India essentially had a circular economy. India's mindset has been circular. It has been made to look linear, or the whole development approach became linear, but our genetics, if you like, are very much circular. We don't throw away a glass bottle. I was just looking at lunchtime how many bottles in my pickles had actually were reused bottles with the wrong labels also on it. But I think we are essentially not a throwaway culture, we are a repair culture. And I think we must ensure that the vision of development, I think there was a good talk today which talked about the fact that we cannot have a development vision which is like what the West is, which is highly carbon intensive, highly fossil fuel intensive. We do need to find an alternative. The alternative will be a circular one, but interestingly, you need to draw both on the traditional circularity of India along with the most modern circularity issues which come in. And I think the marriage of those two through our educational system, where people see this happening, and that will happen through more and more dialogues. There was talk about dialogues through Gram Sabhas, through Samvads, through a number of ways that people, and it again goes back to the comment I made a little earlier on involvement, that people need to be more involved in a good democratic process in terms of what they can in fact do and how do we bring this together. We had, of course, specialized discussions on climate change, on ecosystems, on coastal systems, on population and several others, and I'm not really talking about that, but all of them finally come to some conclusion. And so I would like to end by talking about something I did mention yesterday, that I think we've done a lot since 90s when compulsory education happened. There are just many more people involved, many more good programs. Just the sheer number of programs presented here also is enormous. But I think there is a concept of a tipping point. And this is what I meant, Rambuj, when I said 80% for COVID. There is a concept that if you reach a certain percentage, then it prevents other things happening. A person who always, say, throws plastic onto the street, when they go to Switzerland or somewhere else, where that is not happening, the person will look around, and when they find no other plastic around, they'll probably keep it in their pocket. They will not do it here. There is a tipping point. And I think all that our community of EE and ESD needs to do is take India very rapidly to that tipping point where if anyone actually is not following segregation of waste or is not following an environmental norm, is told by the person standing next door that, excuse me, I think this is not what is in the interest of India, not in the interest of the world. So I think we have a very clear agenda. The agenda for 2030 is not so far. We have only 9 years till 2030. The SDGs have brought in a number of issues into it. Population is an additional one, which is, in a sense, coming into our discussion at this conference. Education is all over that. People still don't know enough, don't believe enough that education can make that difference. And this has been our constant battle for ever since at least I got in this field, to tell people, and that happens through demonstrating. I think there were good number of examples given that where you could show an example. Recently, I just saw that example from Ethiopia, which was shown. The minute you see good examples that yes, it can happen, this is how it can be done, and that is one of the things Mobius Foundation itself is doing, looking at a green school and greening schools. I think this is how we go into the future. So Ramji, let me again congratulate everyone here, all the participants, all the organizers, and I think long after this conference is ended today, we will still be drawing inspiration from it in terms of publications. Perhaps if all the recordings are available, we might want to attend a session which we missed because we couldn't be in more than one session at a time. And we might want to go back to a plenary, and I think the Technical Advisory Committee will help Mobius in terms of how you can best use this material. But we need to mine this material over the next few months so that it becomes useful to many more people who could not be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karthik bhai. Really very inspiring. And as I said, you are leading this ICSE in front, and I think all these words provided a lot of food for not only thought right now, but a future direction as well, where we all environment and sustainability educators should go. So that way it provides a useful guidance and a lot of leading points. I was trying to note down each and everything because I think you summed up so nicely the whole session. Particularly, I liked your take on the circularity. Means traditionally India has been a circular society. I remember when we all were engaged in preparing the country report for Earth Summit. I don't remember the topic, but the title, but it was something like traditions, culture, something like for India. So even that is so relevant even today, and gives a lot of. We all were working on like talking about circular economy, but as a concept it came from the World Economic Forum, and particularly the word economy is somewhat misleading. Means rather like one of the programs that I was involved, I said let us talk about circularity, forget about economy, because of course economy has overtaken many things out of all the three pillars. But that's very good. And also mainstreaming sustainability into education, means infusion approach is one which talks about the whole mainstreaming concept. So I think yes, I see the agenda is now of course the vote of thanks. But before that, I think there was some kind of declaration wall, and I got a note from the Secretariat Nothing very interesting, but everybody has heaped praise on all the speakers. Of course, Karthik, where you top in that list, popularity. Very good initiative by ICSE. Great experience, nice initiative. Website design too active. To other also like sustainable. Innovative way of conducting virtual conference, excellent informative sessions and excellent e-resources, amazing knowledge sessions. All sessions are excellent. I enjoyed more. Conference, very user-friendly interface with the organic touch, great experience, very informative interactive sessions. Lucky to join this as a primary teacher. I want to be aware, to make my students aware about environment and sustainability. Program is good. Please share the compiled document on key learnings from conference for wider public dissemination. Thanks. Someone has given her mobile number as well. So, and there are many more. And I think you summed up very nicely some of these that has come up. We will compile all these declaration and suggestions and also the whole proceedings. We already have been approached by very internationally acclaimed publishers, quite a few. We will, I think next TAC, we will discuss about this. So in fact, when we began in 2019, this journey of ICSE, it was an overwhelming. We were not very sure that this virtual mode will become overwhelming. In fact, there we had 750 participant delegates, but here are, I think, 2 or 3 times more. Of course, close to 700 are registered. And almost double, triple numbers are watching live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. And Earth Day Network said that they are live streaming through their network as well. So a lot of interest by all our partners and supporters in this endeavor. Morning, I would just like to brief you about what we had in the opening session in the morning, the plenary. Dr. Anil Prakash Joshi, he is, of course, Padma Bhushan and Padma Shri awardee and founder of Himalayan Studies and Conservation Organization, HESCO. I think he gave a very good concept of grass environmental product, GEP, I would just like to say here, instead of GDP, and government of Uttarakhand has adopted it as a state policy. And he spoke about a lot of activities that they are doing in Uttarakhand and particularly Himalaya. Yesterday was Himalaya Day. And of course, he termed like great dying that is happening now, the extinction of species. And he was telling that in terms of GDP, if you consider, we have already led it to Patal, to underground. So let us talk about the GEP. We had Magsaysay awardee Mr. Rajendra Singh, and also he spoke very briefly. In fact, he was the last one to appear because we were very late. So he summed up in 2 minutes that we must nurture nature and consider it as the capital and work towards betterment of nature, particularly water, which is life. Then we have Donna Goodman, founder and executive director at Child Institute. She was a keynote speaker in 2019, this international conference, our ICSE. And in fact, she unveiled her plan for reimagining global education. And also, like in this, in her speech today, she emphasized on that, particularly her program, Eco Masters program, which is very popular, and how she is trying to do this eco masters are making their child leaders. Is at very early childhood, she's trying to nurture those young children. Viva Dhawan from Terry, she spoke about the our rather exploitative way that, and emphasized on the Mahatma Gandhi's famous saying of needs, not greeds. And she was of the opinion that we are currently consuming more rather than conserving. And a lot of initiatives that she was more like concerned with the youth, because right kind of information and education is required to the youth. So that was the big morning session, and I would like to thank each one, all the 11 groups, very interesting, very engaging, and I think very energetic, full of energy, all the groups. And as Karthik Bhai has said, we will put up on our website and also on YouTube, I think all the recordings. In a slightly, we will try to edit it to some extent to make more interesting all these videos, and also the whole proceedings. Particularly those speeches, I think we will run a series on the social media, like we did last time, and also come out with the proceedings, a report, and of course all those papers. They were close to, I think, 24 papers that have come in such a short time. People have contributed those papers, and they are in the resource center on this website. This website will remain open, I think, for a few days. And one can visit even after the close of the session. So we would like to thank each one of you, particularly Karthik Bhai, for sparing so much time. All his guidance and leadership was ever ready all the time. And of course, I had the right also, being his erstwhile. We have worked together for 14 years together, and beyond that all the time, so almost 30 years I can claim. So I have the full claim on him. But his entire CE family, I am not going to name, otherwise I will forget a few names. But entire C family was here. You can see each and every session they were either actively or means otherwise contributing to the sessions, all the sessions by C. So thank you, Karthik Bhai, for your active support and collaboration and leadership.
Thank you, Rambut. And it is really the active participation of so many organizations here.
Yeah. So yes, I will try to thank each and everyone. In fact, Climate Reality Project, Aditya Pundir, his entire team. In fact, they have been right from the very inception of this ICSE. Terry, which hosted the first conference, in fact, in their campus, in the India Habitat Center. They were also in full force, along with its director, Dr. Vibha Dhawan, and they were visible in most of the sessions. UNESCO, in fact, I can also claim on them because I have worked there for almost 11 years. And Benno, Eric Falt, he was too busy, too preoccupied in some of the programs which are simultaneously being organized by UNESCO. But he sent in a very nice message. Before I forget, I think even the minister sent a nice message. Of course, it was very big. Just he wished for a successful conference and deliberations. Mr. Eric Falt also sent in his message. Neha, Midha, Beno, and others, they were very actively supporting. UNEP country head Atul Bagai, you all heard him yesterday, and Gayatri Raghava, and his entire team was with us. Pramod Sharma and his entire team, Senior Director of FEE, the young reporters of environment that you saw them, that was basically trained and selected by Pramod, his group, as well as Madhvi from CEE. Again, thank you all very much. Karuna Singh, the Earth Day Network, she said that she will organize a full-fledged session on green economy. That was very, very interesting session. Radhika Suri and her group from WWF India, Terry Spare, both days from Earth Overshoot. He was, in fact, one of the persons who was rooting for population to be included under this conference, along with our chairman, Mr. Pradeep Burman. So that was very interesting. And also the PFI, Poonam Mutreza, the director PFI, was not available because they have their governing body or some important meeting. But in fact, Sangamitra Singh was with us, and she gave all the her insight into the conference. Wildlife Trust of India, WTI, its senior directors, Rahul Kaul and his team, you just had Sameer and Sandeep, all they were there. NIOS, as National Institute of Open Schooling, Anshul Kharbanda, she made a good presentation. In fact, the very interesting session on this use of ICTs in education, she was there, contributed greatly. IUCN, its project manager Archana Chatterjee and her group, she joined today, after attending the World this Congress, Conservation Congress. Many, I think I should not, I think Donna Goodman, Neelima Zeret, and Rajan Shende, Rituraj Fukan. From NCRT, we had the Dr. Chong, Shalini Sharma, so many names, and I must apologize if I forgot some. There were close to some 70 speakers altogether. Overall, I would thank, and we all grateful to Mr. Pradeep Burman for his leadership, for his vision, and all through support. He was traveling, he was in London, and then yesterday he has reached Dubai, but he was throughout. In fact, he was one to join the first, and throughout his guidance, support, and supervision was available to all of us. All my colleagues in Mobius Foundation, I think you have on the front, you have seen Archana and Kavya, but there were many behind the scenes who were supporting this. Nidhi Singh, Poonam Parihar, Dr. Shiv Shankar, Shravan Kumar. I think here also I would not name everyone, but they all supported me. We have been working day and night since past few days, right from the day we started working on this conference. And finally, the whole ELCOT team, this kind of the platform that they have provided, I think that was very robust. The plenary hall, exhibitions, resource center, I think every one of you must have taken a selfie as well. Some of them have posted on Facebook. I think I would advise everyone, please take a selfie and post on the Facebook. That will be, I think, great this support to this ICSE. And you can download your certificates as well. Download any material from the resource center or from the exhibitions. Plenty of resources that will remain open. I think for tomorrow as well, I will request these to keep it open as long as possible. And thank you all. Finally, I think if I have forgotten some names, from bottom of my heart, I thank each and every one of you for all the success for organizing this event. This would have not been possible without you all. Thank you all, and congratulations everyone. Kartika, you are muted.
No, thank you, and thank you, Rambuj, also. So,
Yes.
What was Rambuj? So that's it.
Yes.
Thank you for all the work you did. And of course, Pradeep ji.
Yeah. Mr. Berman, are you there? I think he is in the gallery. He always.
Okay, Rabuj, I think we've done a good
Yes,
job.
I think thank you so much, Karthik Bhai. Again, I think we will have a TSE soon. I think next week sometime.
Yeah, we'll do that.
We'll meet and just to plan further.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you very much.